We are here for another edition of Spirit of 47 podcast. I'm your gracious host, Bryson Clark. I'm here today. It's an honor, former mayor of Dalton, Georgia, but a lot more than that. Family man, overall good guy, and I say this with all due respect, a real machine in the gym. I have fitness goals like this man. I'm trying to get to where this guy is right now. And it's a pleasure, for me to sit down and talk to you today, Mr. Mock. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Bryson. That's a glowing introduction.
Thank you so much. I hope, you said you had a little workout earlier this morning, so hope you're feeling good. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess, we can start from the beginning, or if you would like to maybe talk about humble beginnings and how your journey started to where you are now. And did you grow up here in this area?
No, I did not.
Okay.
How many hours you got?
Yeah, we have all day. We can sit here all day.
I won't do that to you, but yeah, I did come from humble beginnings.
Okay.
Born in Muncie, Indiana. And
Okay.
Grew up in southern Indiana, little town outside of Columbus, Indiana, called Elizabethtown.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, we were poor as church mice and didn't know it, because everybody else in that town was too. We just thought everybody was the same, and we were.
Yeah.
And it was a good life. Walked to school, much different than now. It was a little over a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes rode our bikes, but yeah, we had a good life back then. And I've always been a working person. Started delivering newspapers when I was 5, and actually had 2 paper routes by the time I was 8. And my brother and I got up early in the mornings and delivered papers before going to school. And I'd help one of the local farmers milk his cows on my paper route. I was busy all the time.
Man.
Bought my bicycles with my newspaper money to be a little faster at it, and ended up getting a 3-speed at one point, and I thought I was doing great.
You were, was it a Schwinn?
I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. So what time in the morning would you have to get up and deal with you said the cows, right?
Yeah, I got up about 5. And
Okay. Yeah, I always hear it's one of those things you have to get up, actually, preferably before the sun comes up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so.
It was tough in the winters, because we had a lot of snow back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me tough though.
Yeah, and those qualities are something that you can carry into throughout life, really.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, you grew up in a small town in Indiana, close to Columbus, Indiana, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, upon graduating high school, you entered Ball State.
I did go to Ball State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ball State. And how far away was that from your hometown?
It's about 120 miles. It's back up in northern Indiana in Muncie, where I was actually born.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of a fun experience.
Okay.
I learned, I guess, quite a bit. I graduated and wasn't with honors, but I did make it through.
You made it.
And, it's what really got me down here. I married a girl from Ball State. We both graduated. She was in the teaching program, and it was back in the late 80s. Georgia was really short on school teachers, and so they contacted Ball State, and they loaded up, I think, 7 or 8 bus loads of prospective teachers to come to Atlanta and meet school superintendents from all over Georgia, and almost all of them took jobs here in Georgia, so they had, I don't know, a few hundred new teachers here from Ball State University that year.
Wow.
And we were part of that program. She didn't like it here especially. I loved it here. And she wanted to go to Alaska, and I said, I don't think that's my calling. So she left and I stayed, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So there was a big recruiting process, I can imagine.
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah. That's interesting. So upon coming to Georgia, did you see any differences between Georgia and Indiana besides the weather, or was it pretty much the same?
Oh no, it's different. Definitely different. there were two similarities, or there was one big similarity between Columbus and Dalton at the time. We were two of the 10 richest cities in the United States per capita. We had more millionaires here and in Columbus because of Cummins Engine Company and the carpet industry here than anywhere in the United States. And not that that attracted me, but it sure was the land of opportunity when I got here.
For sure.
And I didn't really know that at the time, but as I stuck around here, I got to know that. Pace of life was a good bit slower down here. You know, I had a car problem and I took it to somebody to get it worked on. Couldn't tell you who now, but he said, "Oh yeah, I can get to it in the next couple of weeks." And I was used to, you know, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. And I was about to freak out. You know, I can't do that. You know.
So I can imagine it was here in Dalton, right?
Yeah.
I can see
And
that.
I still remember when Walnut Avenue ended at Abutment Road. It was dirt road after that, and you know, I've seen a lot of changes here since then.
Absolutely. And you said this is the late 80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. And so Abutment Road, of course, that area, for people who may or may not know, is highly industrialized, that particular part of town. So I can imagine there was a lot of booming industry going on with the carpet mills.
Everything was going strong back then.
Yeah.
You know, and I started out working in mental health here. When Sharehaven was going on, I was the first male employee they'd had in a long time out there, and had a real fun time out there. Didn't make a lot of money, but kind of got my feet wet in the mental health community, and then went to work at the hospital for 4 years on the psychiatric unit, and was a counselor up there when they opened it up, and decided I'd like to try hospital administration. And so I quit work and went to Georgia State University for my master's degree in hospital administration.
Okay.
And the rest is history. You know, I graduated from there and did a 6-month residency. Decided I hated that. The politics were not what I wanted to do. So started raising cattle, and did that until the government got heavily involved and ruined the profit margins in that.
Yeah.
Worked in a commercial laundry under one of the nice guys, neat older guys in town, Ellis Whitehead, and at that time, while I was in graduate school, I started dating my current wife, Debbie, who worked at the hospital, and that's where I met her. And we got married, and her family asked me to come to work at their wholesale produce business here in town, Whitco Produce.
Whitco Produce. Yeah.
So I stuck it out there about 25 years, and you know, it's been a good life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I vaguely know of Miss Mock. I've seen Miss Mock at work. I work at the hospital too, but I know she. If I can imagine, she's been retired, or did she leave, or?
She retired finally. Yeah, she was there 51 years and a day.
Wow, congrats.
So she was a backbone of the hospital there for a long time.
For sure, for sure.
She was a pretty dedicated employee.
Nice.
But one of the fun things I always did, Bryson, while I worked a steady job, I always had a side hustle going. And that's what Dalton kind of drove me to, I guess. We would go on vacation, like we'd go to New Mexico to ski. Mm-hmm. And I'd literally tear the yellow pages, or a page out of the yellow pages of carpet layers out of the phone book, and come back and look through it, and I'd call a carpet layer or two and say, "Hey, I know you lay carpet in New Mexico. Would you like to sell carpet and make a little extra money?" And they said, "Well, yeah, how's that working?" And back in those days, I could go in a carpet mill and get carpet samples, and I'd send them carpet samples and set up an account with the carpet mills, and these guys would, you know, they'd sell some carpet, and I'd make a little money, they'd make a little extra, and it was great.
And you know, as you say that, I think that really speaks to just how much of an economic boom that not just Dalton, but I think Northwest Georgia had in the 80s and the 90s. And that's something, you know, we would hear our parents in my generation, or, you know, a lot of the older folks talk about how lucrative it was to be here.
Oh yeah.
Jobs, business, whatever, you know, endeavor you really wanted to get into.
If you wanted to work a little bit, you could make a good go of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I never made a fortune at it, but I did have one of the first websites to sell carpet.
Nice.
Found somebody who, when the internet hit, that could make a website. It was very rudimentary, but it worked, and quickly figured out that wasn't for me because I was getting calls from China and Japan and everywhere in the middle of the night. And,
wow.
Ended up having to sell that to one of my buddies that was in the carpet business, and you know, it was fun.
Yeah. Wow. And also that's another way that you're a pioneer in this area. You were really involved in e-commerce at a time where, I mean, now everybody has a website or social media, but you were probably doing that probably like in the late 90s, I would imagine. If that's like a web, that's almost 30 years. So you were way ahead of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that goes to show the power of the internet as well.
Oh
for
yeah,
you to
absolutely.
attract people from all over the world like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, once you sold the business and everything, was politics in your mind at that time, or were you still kind of going through your career?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me about that, and I thought about that. I remember in grade school thinking, when we were talking about government, you know, someday I want to be president.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure other kids have had that dream. I pretty quickly gave up on that idea, but politics were always in the back of my mind, and somewhere, I forget when I first ran, but I told my wife I wanted to run for House of Representatives, State House, and it was back when the big push was, you know, we need to get rid of all the old timers, and, you know, so I ran against Roger Williams, and I came pretty close. I think I got beat by 110 votes, and it kind of got my blood stirred up thinking, you know, it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And ran again and got my pants beat off the second time around. But my passion didn't go away. And David Pennington was mayor at the time, and he had announced that he was going to run for governor and have to drop out. And this is no lie, I was sitting in my backyard looking at this one tree we've got in our backyard, and it's a holly tree, holly bush basically, but it's shaped like a mushroom. And we had people in our backyard all the time because we got a pool in the backyard. And I told my wife, I'm the only one that notices that tree. If it's not trimmed and looks good, you know, everybody comes over here and they never mention that tree. They don't care. Mm-hmm. But I do, and that's kind of the way I feel about city government. You know, everybody is involved in it every day, but they don't pay attention to it. And I think I'd like to start paying attention to it. I'm going to run for mayor. She said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I am. She kept telling me no. And I remember walking into the courthouse to qualify, in the city hall to qualify, and I had her on the phone. She said, where are you? And I said, you know where I am? She said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I did it anyway, and I won, and she was probably miserable for the first year. And after that, she kind of figured out, you know, this isn't that bad. You know, it's, she saw I was having fun, and she learned to have some fun out of it too. And it was probably the best experience of my life.
And this was in 2014, the mayor.
2014, yeah.
And prior, that was 2012 with the House of Representatives.
It was
right?
12, yeah.
Yeah, so from 14, and of course I was gone by that time, but I was really happy to hear about that you have, gotten that seat as a mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting from that point, once you got in office, was there a feeling of what's next, or did you really have a clear-cut path of what you wanted to do with the city?
Oh, there was no clear-cut path. It was, what am I doing? There's no playbook, there's no rule book, there's no handbook, there's no nothing. Mm-hmm. So God and I had a few talks, and it's all about doing the best you can and being upright, and That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got 4 council members that do the actual voting, and you're a figurehead, and play your role well, and do what you think's right. And that's all you can do, and it's what gets you by.
Yeah. And that's really embodies what being a public servant is.
It is, yeah.
Serving the community, and like you said, doing things the right way. And from your experience being a mayor, also being a councilman, what are some of the differences, besides the obvious differences as far as the title? What is the difference for you actually being in those seats and wearing those different hats?
Well, I think the time spent is the big factor for me. While I was mayor, and it can work different for different mayors. You can spend as much time as you need to or want to. And I told everybody the second time there, I didn't want to rerun because I didn't have enough time. And when I do something like the mayor's seat, I wanted to do 110%, and I spent a lot of time at it. There were very few interviews or very few meetings or very few phone calls that I turned down. And you know, the beauty of a cell phone is you can turn it off, and you can have somebody else go to the meetings for you if you want to, but I didn't want to. I wanted to be on the forefront of everything, and you know, if I was going to be the mayor, I was going to be the mayor. And we now have grandkids out of state, and we like to travel and go see them, and so I didn't feel like it'd be fair to my family or to the office to do it again.
Yeah.
So as a council member, I can do a lot more over the phone. I can Zoom some meetings, and you know, I'm not called on to go to meetings and interviews and that stuff as much.
Mm-hmm. And what during this time, what do you feel what was the most rewarding, or I guess maybe some challenges you might have faced, or some of the rewards you might have really felt that you had at that time?
Well, the big challenge is to get a grip on how big the whole city is. I mean, you're not just dealing with police and fire department. You got public works. You're literally the figurehead for Dalton Utilities. That's partly under your control. I mean, the city as a whole is about $1 billion industry, and $1 billion is a lot to handle.
For sure.
And you have to have a lot of faith in the people that work for you and with you. And I guess one of the biggest challenges was the people, making sure everybody was happy and making sure we had the right people in the right places to make sure everything worked. Mm-hmm. And you know, sometimes that meant getting rid of some people and getting some new ones in and making everything go smoothly.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that come with being a leader. And I think, and I'm saying this for the viewers, I think a lot of young people don't really grasp that concept. For them, it's always about maybe a title. Not all youth, I don't want to, stereotype, but
Yeah.
People may assume that being a leader is just, pushing buttons and pointing fingers, but it's so much more.
Oh, there are a lot of decisions to make, and they're hard ones sometimes, really hard ones.
Yeah.
And people don't realize the city doesn't have any money by itself. It's money generated from other sources, and we just have to make sure that we're using that money correctly and getting the most bang for the buck out of every dollar we get.
For sure.
That's part of the integrity of the office is, managing funds.
Yeah. And I would imagine, that's a task all in itself, just to be able to manage, funds and, appropriate funds a certain way. And that's I can imagine that being quite a task. And, go ahead.
And one of the biggest lessons I learned in running a big organization like the city was that I always use the analogy of throwing a pebble into the pond. You make one little dent in the pond and it ripples to the whole pond. Mm-hmm. And I did something with money, somebody's pay or something early on, and the ripple effect was just outstanding. It taught me real quick. You do it for one, you got to do it for everybody, and there are effects to everything you do. And So you got to really think ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Like they say, no man is an island. And it just shows how connected we are too.
Oh yeah.
And how much we're affected by each other's decisions.
For sure.
And if I could, jump to another topic a little bit and tie it with what you did, the fact that I alluded to you being, really spending time and dedicating to your body and working out and things like that. It's something I've always admired anyway, but has, I guess, being physically active, has that given you somewhat of an advantage as a public official to push through on certain days when you may not have had anything in the tank, but you have that stamina to be able to get out and hit campaign trails? And do you feel like that's been a help for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an athlete, you learn to push yourself, and you learn that your limits are usually a whole lot bigger than what you thought.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you it's been a great help to me.
Yeah, that's people. I think people are becoming more mindful of really taking care of their bodies now, and people don't realize that kind of thing really bleeds over into whatever other things you're doing in life. And,
Oh yeah. I was just telling my wife this morning, there's an article in today's paper that talks about physical activity and your cognitive abilities as you age, and we've heard it 1,000 times, but it just reiterated it that if you stay active, and your mind will be better and your life will be better, and I think I'm living proof of that.
Oh, for sure, absolutely, and that's why I had to bring it up in the interview, because I've obviously I've seen you in the gym, and I've seen so many days where you're out working people, probably 19, 20 years old, but it's remarkable. But it shows that it's about a marathon, not a sprint. It's about making it a lifestyle. So
that's it.
Yeah.
And there is a hump you have to get over, but once you get addicted, you're addicted. I wouldn't do without it. I couldn't do without it.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to be addicted to. It's a life of being active and staying in shape as best you can. And so, with you were the mayor here in Dalton, and transitioning to some years later, 2023, city councilman or the councilman over Ward 1 here in Whitfield County.
Mm-hmm.
So how's that experience been?
It's been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Hate to say it, but I look around the room when I'm in meetings now and with other council members, and I'm the old guy. Don't feel like it, but I feel like they look to me because of my experience and that I might have, and I hate to call it wisdom, but I've got some experience that a lot of them don't.
For sure.
And so I can answer questions that are difficult questions sometimes.
Yeah. And there's a lot of nobility in being quote unquote the old guy, because that means you had to earn that title of quote unquote the old guy.
Just by outliving them, yeah.
By living, living, learning, and growing from certain experiences too.
Sure.
So I imagine, city councilman is definitely a transition from mayor, but I guess now you're kind of in a phase of your life where you're enjoying your family more and you have more time for certain things.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, we travel a good bit. Both of our sons have careers that it took them out of town. One's in Danville, Pennsylvania, and the other one's in Arlington, Virginia, right outside Washington. And so yeah, they're pretty well stuck with where they are for right now anyway. And it's where we have 5 grandkids. So
congrats on the grandkids.
They're 5 and under, all of them. So they're a great age to really play with and have fun with, and that's another reason to stay healthy. I mean, they're a lot to keep up with.
I can imagine. Yeah, I'm sure they're a handful in a good way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you have your family. This is amazing. And now, do you feel like you have more time to dedicate to hobbies and things that you might have had to put on hold for so many years?
Yeah, I feel like I'm healthier and happier and more sane now than I ever have been. I spend more time reading my daily devotions. I feel a little more attached to God now than I ever have been, because I spend more time studying and reading and being inspired, and enjoying my family more because I'm not distracted by work and issues like that, and enjoy the community because, again, I don't have a work habit to keep up. And so, yeah, everything's really nice right now.
Nice. I love it. And so now that we've, come to this point, what would you say, there's two questions I'd like to ask before we get out of here. What are, I guess, some things what are some of Dennis Mock's favorite things to do as far as hobbies, and besides, what you mentioned, and also what would a typical day look like? What would the ideal day look like for you?
The ideal day.
Yeah. Just I don't want to say the perfect day, but the ideal day.
Today's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Get up when I want to, get up when I wake up.
Yeah.
I don't have a clock to tell me to get up, but I still get up early.
Yeah.
And, I can sit down and read my devotion and drink my cup of coffee and have a little quiet time, and then go to the wellness center or go over to Hagmill Lake and walk, and come back and usually get into some cooking.
Nice.
And then maybe do a few things with my wife, and plan our next trip to Pennsylvania or DC or Aruba or wherever, and talk about what happens next. And
I love it. So what, do you have any go-to dishes that you like to cook, or are you known for any particular dishes in the kitchen?
Well, I've always been this guy who will try anything and do anything, so no, I don't have anything in particular, but if you mention it, I'll do it. That's just kind of been my way of doing things. I don't use recipes, and we'll go somewhere and eat, and if I find something or we find something we like, I'll try to copy it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So are you gonna do any dish for next week for Thanksgiving? Are they recruited you in the kitchen to do anything?
Well, actually, we're meeting our sons in Maryland. It's about 3.5 hours for each one of them to drive, and we rented a cabin up in Maryland, and it's 9.5 hours for us to drive, but we've got more time than they do, and so we're going to be up there for a few days with them, and yeah, we'll be cooking up there. I'll be cooking up there, and our sons cook well too, and so they'll pitch in the kitchen, and we always have a good Thanksgiving meal.
Nice. Yeah, a good Thanksgiving meal this year, and maybe some Lions football for those who know here in Dalton.
Yeah.
Root for the Lions. That's our adopted team here in this town now. So
absolutely, yeah.
Shout out to Jameer Gibbs, but
for sure.
Yeah, I didn't want to take too much of your time, Mayor. I really appreciate you, and thanks for sitting down and having this good conversation. It meant a lot.
Well, my pleasure.
Yeah. And this is the one and only Dennis Mock, folks. Thank you for another edition of Spirit of 47 podcast. It's been great. Hope y'all have a good day.